Broadcast by press and members of the public. Please see section 8 of the guidance for public participation, including recording and use of social media at meetings. And we'll have just a minute to gather our thoughts before we start with the formal items of the meeting. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, thank you very much. We'll begin. The first item is apologies, and I believe we have apologies from a few councillors.
Maureen McLean, Melody Roberts and Stephanie Osborne.
Thank you very much. And moving on to item 2, we have any declarations of interest or dispensations. Do we have any written?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one, I can't remember where it is on the agenda for the Clayfield issue.
Thank you, yes. Thank you.
Do we need to make declarations of interest for when we go through the minutes, because there are items in thank you.
Okay, I think we've exhausted that item, so we will move on to item 3, which is the community safety update.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. Not a great deal to report, which is nice from my point of view. Starting with Antisocial Behavior, the AXOs and our PTSOs are working really well together. Hopefully that's been fed back to you, Malcolm, but it seems to be
Good, thank you.
really good work. There's been a bit of antisocial behaviour over at Applemore School that has been dealt with. The new youth centre seems to have settled down there by frequent patrols by the ACTOs and the PCSOs. We have had reports of youth being on scrambler bikes. This sort of issue is always very difficult to deal with because we would never chase youth on bikes or scramble bikes because we don't want to end up anyone getting killed or involved in an accident. So we try and get as much details as we can with those sort of incidents. So with antisocial behaviour, I think is it this weekend that the clocks go forward, so the evenings will be lighter, so there will be more children, no doubt, out and about. I just think we've just got to remember that children are being children most of the time. There will always be those individuals who will be out there to cause trouble, but there are lots of issues at the moment with children, with mental health issues and other sorts of issues, and the waiting list for these children to be seen are potentially 2 + 3 years long. I'm working with the schools and so my colleagues closely to see what we can do, but I think collectively, we need to sort of work together. It's not just about police, it's all of us, see what we could do, putting things in place for the children. Yes, like I said, there are individuals that we know about we're working with. We don't want to arrest children unless we absolutely have to, because it's not a place for them to be themselves, unless it's really serious. We don't want to criminalise children unnecessarily. However, we will put them through the criminal justice system if we really have to. So we have had a couple of boys, 12, 13 years of age, who were on a mini crime wave, basically committing most of the crimes in, I think it was Netley View area, and they are going through the criminal justice system because they just would not listen. And before that, they go through the yacht triage, and we give them cautions, additional cautions, working with the youth offending team. So they get lots and lots of sort of chances, and with the parents, working with the parents. But I just think coming up to Easter and then the summer holidays, no doubt we will get complaints about children, and we will do as much as we can, but collectively we've got to work together with children, and just also bear in mind that children will be children. You know, just because a group of kids are out maybe laughing music up and effing and blinding a bit because that's how they speak, some of them these days, does not necessarily mean that they're causing antisocial behaviour. So that's how I see it, my colleagues see it anyway. So we had our County Lines Intensification Week, which was the 7th to the 13th of March, across the district, or across actually Hampshire, it's all across England, so it's a countrywide intensification week. So we did a lot of joint working with our partners, did a lot of enforcement, warrants, in other areas we work with which is transport police. Some of these drug dealers are coming into the forest via the old train network. So we looked at our hotspot areas and our known drug dealers. So it was a very successful week. During the week, we don't advertise any of the good work we do. We have a media embargo, and then we put out after that. So that was very successful. Our burglaries and theft from motor vehicle generally remain low. We do review every one of them, even if we don't attend. Our police cadets are now out and about with us. These are our youths who, with COVID, haven't basically been out with us for 2 years, and they will do sort of low-level stuff, like they will be out in the rural car parks handing out literature about why you do not leave handbags in your footwell, things like that. So, but it's nice to see them out and about. And the Ukraine conflict, I don't know if people have come forward about taking refugees. So the local authority, NFDC, have been in touch with myself, because we're obviously looking at ways where if families want to take in refugees, there will be DBS checks from the local authority, and we are setting up a system so that they can come to us and we do our checks and we work together, because what we all know, this scheme will be exploited. There will be those who will take advantage of the scheme. There's no question about that. We have to do our best to make sure those people we find out and don't let them be on the scheme. So processes, procedures are being put in place. So we work together. Local authority does their checks along with us doing our checks, and then we sort of meet in the middle, sort of thing. So I don't know if any refugees have been taken into this area, or even Hampshire. I'm not aware of any.
I think they're still waiting for clarification of government from
Okay.
So I think that's the position,
Right.
certainly with the district council.
Yeah, okay. Because we've had questions asked from like my colleagues if we can take in refugees, and we've been told that yes we can. It's very much our personal choice. Right, so that's it from me. So very few months crime-wise anyway, recorded crime. But again, if you could push out about please report crime, however much of a pain it might be on 101, but there's always online or in Crime Stoppers with reporting any intelligence.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Just two things really. One is a word of thanks really. There was a young person that was reported being followed by a car very closely about 9:30 one evening, and the car doubled back to follow the lad. He reported it because it was just in case.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the follow-up with the PCSOs was excellent. So
Oh good, excellent.
thank you for that.
I always like good feedback.
Thanks, Tom.
Very
Secondly, I just wonder whether you'd had any reports of seeing fuel. I remember when prices were very high last time, there was lots of activities of tanks being emptied and all the rest of it. I just wondered whether that happened this time.
No, but we are looking at oil
Right.
being taken more in the
Empty sort
rural
of farm
yeah.
machinery
Yeah.
or
All
stuff.
that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So we are looking at that, not just in this area, but other rural areas across the country, because we think that will go up.
Yeah.
The actual petrol fuel, no, not at the moment. But
You know
hopefully
that?
not now that we've had the budget.
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
No, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to actually support what Hannah said about young people, mental health. the impact of the pandemic has exponentially increased the number of young people with mental health issues with the situation it came. And also, year on year, even without the pandemic, Hampshire getting bigger with children's services, etc., we're discovering or we're getting more and more young people with issues for whatever reason that is. The challenge for the police, and for indeed us, is that you're right, we need to have a bit of sensitivity to this, but we have an ageing population, and the ageing population's expectations of behaviour and standards are often at conflict with young people in that situation. Now, the issue is that we need to engage with the police, engage with the Handy Trust, and children's services, so to really understand where the young people have a problem, because not all of them are, shall we say, necessarily, they may have problems, but they're not all of them solvable by mental health. Some of them, sadly, and I exactly agree with your point, you don't want to get into the criminal justice system, but some of them will end up there because their issues are not controllable by the normal routes of support behaviour. But there are very many young people who we need to hang on a minute. Let's try and look into it. There's a story why that person is doing what she or she is doing. Not in all cases, but there are in some. So it just needs us to understand and investigate. Because some need help and support, which will stop them going down the wrong road, so to speak.
And just on the back of that, can I just say, speaking of children's services, a lot of the families are just families like us. Yes, probably in the past, children have come from dysfunctional families and behaviour breeds behaviour sort of thing. But children's services are seeing in the last couple of years that these are just everyday sort of normal families. I don't like to use the word normal, but you know what I mean. These are families who've had no problem at all with their children until, say, the last year or so, and they just do not know what to do not know what's out there support, and it's a real shock for them. So, and we're also seeing more children on parent violence, which is really sad, because again, the parents just do not know what to do. They will phone the police, but generally they won't support prosecution, which you can understand. You know, who wants to see their child in court for assaulting them? And really, parents are just at the end of their tether, and that's why they phone us, and to sort of stop the assault, but obviously not wanting to criminalise their children. So that's a really, really difficult situation to be in as well for these poor parents.
Councillor Wade.
Yes, thank you very much, Director. Firstly, as I say, yes, I am encouraging people, including someone who was recently hit by a car as they drove past and the car drove on. It was, you know, the wing mirror came off, but I encourage them to also report that by 101 online, which I do think is a more effective service than the phone personally, but it's important to get it recorded. Are you aware of a scammer going around, it was in the Hollybank area, but also in the Holby area, targeting vulnerable residents with regards to cleaning their guttering and effectively taking...
I have read, yes.
Okay, you are aware.
Yeah.
If you weren't, I've seen some reports in my ward, but I know it's not just relevant. This individual may be the wider water side, that was on.
And generally our PTOs don't do any follow-up visits with any fraudsters or scammers.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your report.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Moving on to item 3B, just for noting that councillors have seen the ACSO report. Fantastic. Moving on to item 4, which is the minutes. It's pages 7 to 12, councillors.
Thank you very much. I've saved any notes.
If I go through page by page, if councillors wish to stop me as I go through, please do. Page 7, agenda item 4. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. And page 12. Can I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Wade, and a seconder. Thank you. Councillors happy to have that as an accurate record of the previous meeting?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on then to the next item, which is Chairman's announcements. Although the scope of the humanitarian crisis resulting in suspected war crimes committed in Ukraine in the name of Putin is way beyond the scope of a parish council, we can applaud the generosity and determination of so many individuals and groups in our community to do what they can to show support and solidarity for the civilians who are caught up in this ongoing atrocity. Local authorities, including our county and district councils, are currently waiting for the detailed government response to ensure that we can provide ongoing support for refugees. On another matter, I'd like to thank Helen Bradley on behalf of the council for her work getting the first Soup Dragon event up and running. We're still not out of the C19 shadow, and any public event continues to have a greater risk of last-minute cancellation. Also, congratulations to Councillor Sean Cullen on being duly appointed as District Councillor in the by-election on the 3rd of March. We move on now to reports by county and district members. So, we have a report from Councillor McAvoy, don't we? Councillors have noted the receipt of the report. Fantastic. On to Councillor Wade then for his county report.
Thank you. Not too long, actually. It has been a very, very busy month working for local people and dealing with caseloads. They have brought to my attention across the spectrum of council responsibilities. Rather than necessarily. Right, very good to see you. It's been a very busy month working for local people and dealing with casework that have been brought to my attention across the spectrum of council responsibilities, rather than necessarily attending standing committees. However, I did attend a few meetings, and one was a highway briefing on the recent storms which damaged Hampshire County Council trees and the highway land right across the county. Damaged trees included the one on Canterbury Drive, which fortunately only landed on the open reach box and not on any property. In response to resident concerns, I've asked the County Council to empower Borough Cultural Department to inspect the remaining tree of that piece of land to ensure it is safe and not a danger to adjacent property. I also visited Council Activity Centre and had a tour of the facility. I'll encourage all local people interested in these activities to go there to visit and use the facility because it needs to increase its financial viability. In the difficult financial situation the County Council is going through, if it cannot break even, they will look to shut it down. And despite the great facility it provides for local people and the excellent educational experience it provides for young people. The County Council will be bringing in on-street parking charges all over Hampshire, and whilst as yet I have not been informed of any in Hythe and Dibden, Leamington High Street will be charged for parking in the near future. As an addendum to this, my Liberal Dem colleagues are, with some Conservatives as well, are hoping to call that decision in because it was taken against the advice, I think it was against the advice of the Scrutiny Committee. But anyway, they've got to call it in. Final point, a note about potholes. To report one, I need the exact location, for example, outside the house, number 52 of Weather Road. Also the size of it, is it as large as a dinner plate or spare tyre? Plus the depth, as deep as a golf ball or a tennis ball or deeper. A photo always helps if one can be sent to me. Armed with this, I'm happy to report it on the Hampshire County Council website. Please take note, members, and pass on to any residents who bring these potholes to your attention. Of course, you or any member of the public can report it on the website yourselves if you wish, but I'm happy to do it on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Councillor Cullen.
Nothing to report as such. I did inadvertently attend a Housing and Homes Committee, which I'm sure Councillor Wade will give a detailed response to.
Thank you. Councillor Donnell.
Not a lot to report, Chairman. I was at the full council meeting on Monday, or an extraordinary council meeting on Monday, about 3-4. But I'm guessing some of my colleagues will actually give a better report than I can.
I don't think we could.
Okay, thank you. I also have very little to report, having been quarantining for a while. So moving on to Councillor Wade.
Actually, I think yours is shorter than mine. Do you want to go first?
Well, no, we'll do it in order, otherwise I'll
Okay.
get confused.
I'll let Councillor Malcolm over first. The free report, needless to say, I spoke on it and voted against it, and feel my concerns were listened to. I'd like to congratulate my new ward colleague, Sean Collins, and also thank everyone who stood in the by-election. All local residents stood. Ms Marwood, Mr Kitcher and Ms Gallagher. It was excellent to have 4 candidates all within the ward standing. Council grant funding is closed till April 1st and will reopen with improved budgets of £1,000 per councillor. Any outstanding balance under £600 is being carried over. I've assigned a couple of mine. Information offices. On the Community Leisure Partnerships and Wellbeing panel, I asked Councillor Russell, the portfolio holder, regarding the future of our information offices. Obviously, the authorities is exploring how to respond to customer needs through a task and finish group. And this is a review of face-to-face, telephone and online service delivery. My personal concern, as many of you in this room today, is that this is going to be used as an opportunity to reduce provision rather than protect it. I did question him about the lack of access to other NFTC offices and that not all residents have the ability to travel to the likes of Lyndhurst and rely heavily on our local information offices. He responded to me. He does not know where this idea cuts from, and it's not on his agenda to do cuts, but he won't preempt the task and finish group. I will continue to argue for the protection of this, and you can see the interactive about 13 minutes on YouTube in the meeting. NFDC are updating CCTV provision and working through all the district. Obviously, cameras are being updated based on their age, and they're being replaced for full exchange hopefully by 2025. At this stage, I was advised that Prospect Place, the Promenade and Netley U Skate Park have been replaced with Invictus model, which is increased infrared and high def. The NFTC CCTV manager has advised me he will write to the town and parish councils advising of planned exchanges and will be holding 2 open evenings for the councils to visit the control centre. On Tuesday, 15th of March, was when I attended the community panel, and Freedom Leisure attended and presented their performance monitoring since they took over the leisure centres in the district 8 months ago. I received a similar report in the task and finish group a day before. Now, not all big commitments are being achieved as of yet. Post-COVID customer behaviour and energy prices have proven challenging. They are investing in Ackermore, as promised, by a large 5-storey soft play area in the place of the badminton courts next to the viewing gallery. So you've got your big sports hall, and then next to it, behind the barrier, there is going to be a large soft playground. There will also be a new fitness room and a Costa Coffee area in reception, which are all welcome additions, but again, some similar facilities they have in the first place, such as the cafe area, which currently looks a little bit pointless. I asked about the pricing structure. Specifics couldn't be provided, but they will be looking at monthly and on-the-day pricing, and efforts to be made to affordable to young families. Local club and users have been made aware about the loss of the 2 courts and have been consulted about where best to accommodate them. Membership is at just under 600, which is 15% down from pre-COVID, but rising since July 2021. And there is a growth in swim classes, currently at 74% occupancy. They are working with active lifestyles and about 39 medical facilities around the district, such as local surgeries and with Mind for 18 to 24-year-olds. They do have a big risk of energy costs rising, and it's their biggest risk as they took utilities costs as part of the contract. It's a short-term contract for renewal, which has proven to be a challenge. This may impact on some of the financials, and possibly NFTC will have to look to how to support Freedom with this regards. Usage has dropped, but this would be linked to the pandemic usage of centres, and they are looking to survey staff and users. NFTC are responding to 9% more fly tipping incidences the last quarter and a part of Operation Wolf. And they continue to work with partners on this issue. Tree planting in NFTC is massively down, although the Platinum Jubilee has presented a somewhat fortunate way of rectifying this, with 17 new street trees scheduled to be planted. Interestingly, and I asked you all to help promote this, only 40% of NFPC residents subscribe to the council's information email. It is actually very useful, so I would encourage any of you to get more people within the district to fill that. Also, costs for using NFTC secretary services have risen following the portfolio holder decision. We did have the portfolio crime panel report. Apparently there will be 621 additional officers in the county, with 192 due to start by the end of this month, and 103 new PCSOs. No specifics on the forest. This does not account for net changes. The panel were told there is a reduction in crime and crime reporting and are focusing on lower level crimes, but there is a willingness of the force to improve response in this area, which is welcomed by councillors. But we need clarity on what low level crime is. That couldn't be advised to us by the councillor. I did ask about the short-term closure of 36 custody suites at Southampton Police Station, but obviously that's not something that could be answered at the time. And the PCC is reviewing the efficiency of the police's estate, which may allow for some parts of some stations to partially reopen, not Hythe. I hasten to that. The following day, I attended Housing and Homeless panel, as Councillor Cullen advised. Again, it's on YouTube if you wish to watch it. NFDC are trialling one of their Lipton sites a new sprinkler system to provide extra response in case of fire. We discussed the greener housing strategy and other wider programmes and bids that NFDC are making alongside other agencies and other councils, including Portsmouth City Council, that hopefully will supply 26,000 homes with grants to improve energy efficiency. In Testwood, where the old Testwood Club used to be, there's a new build plot for low carbon social housing with air source heat pumps, electric charging points, triple glazing, and it's a great initiative and it's the first target. A presentation on charter for social housing residents as well. I did ask the question about feedback from residents due to antisocial behaviour, which is an issue that obviously they will investigate, and I'm trying to go as quick as I can. We received the homelessness update and told that 34 families are in temporary accommodation, which is a rise since January, 45 single residents. £129,000 of funding is being utilised to support 56 families as part of the vulnerable renters to prevent homelessness. An additional bid will be put forward for more government funding with focus on prevention and sustainability. A landlords forum was held recently, which is a way of working with private landlords to ensure that we can provide support and reduce the risk of residents being removed from properties and hopefully decrease homelessness, and encourage the Call for You Serve scheme. The housing register has just under 1,400 families, a slight reduction in January, with the majority 615 of one bed requirements and 454 in 2 bed, and there have only been 62 lettings in the last 3 months. On average, it takes 2.1 years from registering housing to being allocated a property. Lastly, we had a presentation on housing development. They believe that they will hit 617 homes by 2026, which is just above their target, although they are below their yearly target. Lady Cross is continuing to be developed, and a planning application will shortly come forward for Hythe Medical Centre, as NFDC, if we know, have purchased the land. The target of 600 relies heavily on many projects in 2023 to 2025, and I did ask about consideration of new sites the council could utilise, such as empty bank sites in Grimwood, Linton and Hythe, to which the officer said the council are aware and actively looking to consider vitality of when these sites become available. And I did make the point that village/town centre development will support the greener strategy. I also put to him about the police station site, which he and I have discussed in detail before, as I made the case for this location for all the council properties, and he did not go into specifics, understandably so, but did say that a new business development manager is exploring this and similar opportunities, and the council, his quote was, "The council is aware of some of the sites you mentioned and trying to engage, especially with the public sector, encouraging," and I will obviously ask for updates that I'm allowed to share. Apologies for the long report.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Wade.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. It's been another busy month at FDC. I attended the planning committee on the 9th. The most prominent agenda item was to plan to put 100 houses on the floodplain at Branscourt. Whilst the actual site was currently supposed to be above the water level, with climate change and the prospect of increased precipitation, this was a mistake in the making, and I and other members objected, so it was referred back for more work to show how it will be made safe from flooding in the future, if it can. No, I doubt it can. There was also an application in Dibden Parish, which the parish objected to, and I felt the same way, but unfortunately that was passed. On the 10th, I attended Environment, Sustainability and Overview and Scrutiny Panel, which looked at a number of items, one of which was an update on the waste strategy, which has not yet been fully finalised, but should go to Cabinet and the Council later this year. It's been delayed. However, it is already clear and in the public domain, as the preferred strategy was in the papers, that 4 were the most inaccessible and inappropriate properties in the strategy. In the New Forest, the day for Weedy Bends draws ever closer. Another item was a scheme to introduce charging developers for 106 monitoring the legal requirements. It was discussed, and it will help increase the level of control and quality of developments in our district. However, the biggest item this month was the plan to introduce large parts of the proposed Freeport to the waterside, to include Marshall Military Port, now run by Southern Gateway as a private concern, the land at the Dibden Way, termed the ABBP Strategic Reserve, parts of the Exham refinery site and the industrial portion for the waterside development to the old power station site. Now, what does that mean for us? There's a special Cabinet and Council meeting on Monday the 21st to decide on this topic. I asked the Cabinet meeting how many New Forest residents are unemployed, and also what infrastructure is required for this action to take place. And the Cabinet had no idea on either of those points. Yet the decision to produce this solution without no understanding what the problem is was brought in. A presentation in the afternoon by the consultants, KP and G, in the afternoon, told us by their own admission they had no idea, beyond vague ideas of training concepts, how any benefits will be given to the local area, as they had to concentrate on the business case. The benefits to the local area will come later. Increased employment and commercial activities, which is good for the area, but huge numbers of jobs counted in the multiples of thousands is not the panacea hope it is supposed to be for our area. Unemployment in New Forest, and I do know the figures, is 2,375 claimants. And even if all those claimants have a job in the Freeport developments, which is logically unlikely due to skill mix, age dynamic and training, no detail of how we marry up unemployment and jobs, it would mean many thousands of people driving into our area to work. In addition, whilst many of these jobs already exist in the Marchmont Port, Exxon and the APB, most of the new workers would come from out of the area, adding to the daily traffic congestion on our roads. The local infrastructure will be stretched despite the minor improvements to A326. The challenge for us as local councillors is to get whatever benefits for Hythe and Dibden we can, whilst protecting the current environment for our local people. We do not want this levelling up of business to be a levelling down of our local environment. In the council meeting, the bottom line was the vote for the Freeport, which will include ABB land at Dibden Bay, is a green light for that development. That development, which was fought against in the past by New Forest District Council, our local MPs, everybody was against it, by agreeing to put this development on the bus to Freeport with thousands of extra vehicles, extra movements a day, will change the face of the waterside forever. It will mean within quarter to half a mile of the Hythe Marina will be a port development. Within quarter to half a mile of the southern Marchwood residential area will be a port development. That is what, agreeing to the Freeport, it will allow Associated British Ports to transfer a large slice of their business over to Dibden Bay. And this is exceedingly significant for the local area. And what is even more challenging is they will get tax breaks on the new business they put in the Southampton docks that they displaced. Because I asked that question to the officers, which is you understand about displacement. If I take work from that part of the table and put it over here, it's displacement. Even if we do something different over there, it's not in the Freeport, but they'll still get a tax break. So this is a win-win for them because they're very short space in DP World, and we know what they're like. DP World run jobs. This is another organisation that the Freeport will be dealing with. The news tells you all about DP World. Well, the administration, without going into the detail of the real impact on local people, voted for business. Now, I and all my Lib Dem colleagues did not support this. We are elected by people, not business, and we will continue to address the issues which are important for local residents and protect our environment for them.
Thank you. Moving on to outside body reports. If I can have a show of hands from those people who have reports to comment on. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
I went down to Shore Road with the Hythe and Dibden Woodlands group, and there was only 4 volunteers, and we spent about 2-3 hours wandering through the woods, list picking, and generally myself getting an understanding of what it is that they do. One of the things that they do is obviously not cover Hythe and Dibden Woodlands. They do only cover that area of Hythe, probably because apart from one, that's the area that they're in. So they are planning on having a meeting with about 17 potential volunteers who have put themselves forward, but she feels if nobody takes on responsibility as treasurer and the other roles that the group had formerly had, then it was likely that it was going to have to disband. So I think it's whether or not we can promote it as a more wider thing across Hythe and Dibden, because we've got woods that cover a much larger area. If we do that, we might be able to pull some more volunteers in who might be prepared or have the time to take on those additional roles. But she wouldn't commit to doing that until she's at least had the meeting with these few volunteers that had come forward. The other bits and pieces that she had were, there had been a Facebook group for them, but she doesn't seem to have access to it, and who she thought had set them up hasn't set them up. So it could well be the person who passed away that was quite fundamental to the group. So I'm trying to promote it a little bit to see whether or not we can get greater buy-in. That's it.
Can I just add to that, please?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I was with the lady today where she told me that because there is no interest to form a committee, it's being wound up, although several of them will still be meeting on an informal basis to carry on the work, where they've got their materials and tools in a lock-up that is hopefully going to be emptied by the end of the week. And she is going to Lloyd Bank in Tottenham to amalgamate their 2 bank accounts so that they can then dispose of it to a worthy cause. So because they've not got people to form a committee, and it's too much just for her to be left to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Do we have any more outside body reports? I'll just briefly mention I was due to have a Rock the Train meeting with some local groups looking at display space, but due to COVID I had to postpone that meeting. So that will happen hopefully in the next few days. Also had early plans for the Platinum Jubilee lunch and entertainment at Dibden Parish and Hythe for the 4th of June. So my thanks to Reverend Peter, Reverend Lee and Amanda from Harvey and officers for their input in that. And there will be further email communication and further meeting for that. Thank you. I think that concludes my body reports. Thank you. So moving on then to public forum item 8. Do we have any written questions? Okay. Do we have any questions from the public gallery? Yes, thank you.
Chris, I'll let you go first, please. I've recently received my council tax bill. As you probably know, the
our council tax, local one is in 6 sections. And I was disappointed to see that Hythe and Dibden Parish Council is the largest amount. Can you tell me it was 7.9%? Can you tell me how you justify such a large increase? Or is it just the fact of a large increase this year, so you can knock it back down in the election year?
Well, as you're aware, we didn't do an increase at all in the previous year, and that was specifically because of the effect of COVID and the number of people that were struggling in that year. We would have loved to have held it at a 0 increase for the next year, but it just wasn't possible. We've got a number of specific costs, a whole range of issues that we need to deal with, so we couldn't hold it to that. There is well, I'll hand over to the clerk, who has communicated a number of these.
Might be the best thing is I can email you a detailed response. Would that be okay?
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Firstly, congratulations, Sean, on winning the by-election a couple of weeks ago. Really, I guess my issue is an issue of county, so Malcolm, this one's for you, really. As you know, we've spoken previously about people keep falling over in High Street. Now, there was another lady who fell over a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe a week ago. Now, really, I just thought, obviously, it's great that you report it and get it done, you get it sorted, fine. But wouldn't it be cheaper for the county council to actually look at the whole High Street as a whole, rather than just repairing little bits and little bobs? Because otherwise people, I mean, you know, really what I want to know, what does it take before, you know, something major is done? You know, people are falling over a week-on-week basis now, and, you know, just a repair job. If you walk around the village centre, there's raised brickwork, there's uneven patches, tree roots and whatever else have you. You know, what does it take for it to get fixed wholeheartedly, and then not just little patchwork, really?
I totally agree with you. I would love to be able to ask for the entire High Street to be done again. I really would. But I will be told there is no money to do that because the Conservative government have cut the money to the local government. And it's a fact. We know that at the moment, the social care costs, which are astronomical, are taking the bulk of the revenue. The extra money that the government is collecting on national insurance, which is allegedly to deal with social care, the first 2 years are going to the NHS. If on year 3 they do not give any to the county council will be in the red. Don't be under any illusion. The costs for social care are rising astronomically. The government were going to allow the county council to put 2% on the rate just to deal with originally expected for social care, but they said no, you can only put 1% on, which for the county council rate would have been even higher. The basic problem is we have rising inflation, and that will get worse as the energy costs get worse, and obviously the situation in Ukraine has made it even more worse. That affects everything else, energy, petrol prices, car, everything has gone up astronomically. And the amount of money that we're bringing in to solve things, it's gone down. And it's the same thing with the parish council. You know, the energy bill must have been gone up 5 times what it was last year. And it has to be paid for. You got electricity, got the lights on when you're in this situation. But social care is a big problem, right? Because we have an aging population. We have increasing social care costs for adults and for children. I mentioned earlier about the increased mental health issues. We have to help these people. There is a funding to do it, whatever fund is put to that. So all the other things are being reduced. Even children's services is not doing things it should do because you've got the money. So it's a very difficult situation, but I totally agree with you. I really do. And every time there's a problem, I'll report it and I'll say, can we do something more? Can we do something more? They'll send a highway engineer out, he or she will look at it and say, yeah, that needs doing that. We'll fix it. and they'll get their contractor in, they'll bung a repair in, and it's done. And then it isn't perfect, it needs, I would happily ask to it, and I will ask, when can we resurface the high street? I'm happy to send an email, but I know the answer I get won't be very positive, but I will do that, okay?
Thank you. Moving on to the bit I always forget. So councillors to take questions. This is brief questions from councillors. Do we have any questions for councillors? Councillor Cullen.
I think this may be directed to Councillor Malcolm Wade. I seem to remember pre-pandemic, it was Hampshire County Council that produced an app whereby you could actually do the reporting of any potholes online. You took the photograph, it would take the GPS, and it would send all the details off. My memory is not that good.
Is it Fix My Street?
I'm not too sure what it was called, but you know, if we could possibly promote that, so it wouldn't be just dependent on councillors to report issues with potholes in the streets.
I think the ideal route there is for residents to report when there are issues, but to copy the case number to the county councillor so that it can be chased up. That seems to get the best possible result. But even then, I think we've had issues that have gone unsorted for years where they've been reported to the county council.
Can I respond quickly, right? But first of all, the way to deal with it, report it on the website. And if you've got a picture of it, great. But what I said earlier about the depth and the location, that's exactly what you want to do. But if you want to send it to me, I'll do it. I'm used to it. The problem is, what a highway engineer's view is a serious pothole is not the same as what a local resident sees as a serious pothole. If you get a pothole, and I know I'm about to get some more abuse from here, but right, if you get a pothole that's got the depth of a golf ball, it looks awful, is awful, I think it's awful. But a highway engineer's probably got one the size of a football in Alton. I think I better fix that, that's higher up on the priority. And managing expectations of residents is harder than getting them repaired, believe it or not. But the fact is, if you report one, and you get it, and it's not done within 4 weeks, 6 weeks max, you email it to me with the job number, I will chase it up with the highway manager. And she'll come back and she'll tell me, well, we've looked at this, it's not on our, it will be done, but it's not on our priority list. And here's a stat you remember. For Hampshire County Council to fix all of the pavements in Hampshire, it will take 112 years for all of the pavement issues in the county to be done. The funding has been cut that much. That is a fact.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other? Councillor Wade.
Yes, to be fair, actually, no, I'm going to Councillor Mark Clark because he was also at the meeting on Monday. Just for clarification of any parish councillor, did you feel as underwhelmed and unconvinced by the Southampton report when it talked about displacement of businesses, effectively risking moving businesses out of our town and village centres, risking the economies of our towns and villages into the free fall? And were you as unreassured as me that that the answer was reassuring enough for us to support the free fall?
Mr. Chairman, the concern from our point of view is displacement of business, as you rightly say. I'm sorry you weren't there. It was entertaining, nonetheless.
I did see the YouTube highlights. Yes.
The concern for us is the development of Dibden Parish, but it's also about the fact that DP World, who own P&O ferries, who let go 800 workers, may have an effect in this area, and I think we should be mindful for local jobs.
Yeah, okay. Any more questions?
Councillor Wade.
Are you aware, Chairman, that apart from the very valid points that Councillor Alex raised and Councillor Clark have made, and I want to stress this, the single most important issue for us will be APB and Dibden Bay at the end of the decade. That's what we have to fight against.
I am aware, and I think one of the points, as you know, that I've raised is the issue of local plan versus neighbourhood plan. And I think that our current parish council neighbourhood plan has got some very strong features there, and we need to be absolutely on our A game, pushing for those to be retained in the local plan, which is undergoing review at the moment. And I think it is important. Unfortunately, the guidelines as to how these things move forward is very vague in the terminology and the documentation, but I think we do need to campaign actively at district council level to ensure that we get all the support we need from planning in terms of the development in our area. So that's a job for all councillors, but particularly district councillors. Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Is the chairman aware how I can get Southampton Road onto Operation Resilience?
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Is the chairman aware how I can get Southampton Road, big road, key road, awful condition, onto Operation Resilience to be properly sorted and properly dealt with? And by properly I mean terrible patch-up job, better than it is now.
Okay. Operation Resilience is where the highway engineers go out and look at roads and grade them of what is it just a pothole here, a pothole there, or is the road surface sufficiently degraded that need to do the whole road? Looking at the roads they do, and Councillor Alex Wade will know where they did the top part of no, near where you live.
Money's Lane.
Money's Lane, thank you, yes, so mental block.
It's fine, if I say it, it means nothing.
Can we
What they did is they took small sections of it and fixed it. They didn't do the whole road, they just did the bits they thought. Again, it's down to cost. Now, Southampton Road as a whole, although it has some sections that are, and I've reported some potholes on that, do need fixing, they won't do the whole road. All I can do is, and say all members to do, if you've got lots of degraded road, doesn't even have to be a pothole, it be cracked and broken up, report it, send it to me, I'll report it, get it on the list, get the engineers out there, and eventually when it gets so bad, they'll get on the list, they'll come and do it. I know that I'm not giving a very positive response tonight, but I'm actually trying to be realistic and manage expectations. It's like many things, you've got to nag and push and push and push to get it done. And that's cool.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10. This is from the GP&F committee. To consider the recommendations of the GP&F committee, the recommendation is that climate change policy is recommended for approval. That's pages 13 to 24 in the documents.
Can I propose we approve it, Chair?
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lovell. Do we have any questions before we put this to the vote?
I just think we should compliment the clerk who did a lot of hard work and put it together, and the members that all I know contributed to it.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, well, I'll ask councillors to vote then. Those people in favour, please raise their hands. Thank you. Those people against? And those people abstaining. So that's carried, certainly carried wholeheartedly. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, risk report. To receive and approve the summary risk report which forms a part of the audit process. This is from page 25 to 34. Do I have any questions before we move to approval here? Councillor Wade.
Have you made any changes to what's considered medium, low, or possibly high in the last 12 months?
I don't think there have been major changes. Basically, it's that the whole thing is part of the risk wizard, which is the one document. And so it's not a static item. It's something which gets tweaked, throughout every week, every year as things change. But you've actually got the summary document here, whereas I think last year you had the full 70-page main. We can give you that again if you like. But we thought you'd just like the summary edition.
Is that available on the website, should councillors feel so moved?
We don't put that on the website as it's a working document, but if anybody wants it, we can email it out to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can I ask please for councillor to propose? Thank you, councillor Wade. Councillor to second. Thank you, councillor Sloynes. Thank you. Right, so those people in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Moving on. So we move on to the fixed assets list, item 12. This is pages 35 and 36 in the pack. Do I have any questions on? Thank you.
I've not seen this sort of thing before. Fixed assets, buildings, don't seem to have gone up in value in a year.
No, we don't. They're usually nominal. Well, it depends which building you're talking about.
Road, for example.
Quite often we put them in at £1, which is a nominal value. Are you actually talking
No,
about?
I'm talking about the Grove building itself hasn't gone up in value in a year.
We have to put them at £1 nominal value, according to the practitioner's guide on accountability regulations.
No, that's not what I meant. It's
It was valued at 1.something million and it's still the same.
it's still the same.
Yeah, but the thing is, we're not looking to sell it, are we? So,
I know I'm not looking to sell it, but surely the asset value has gone up in a year.
well, as the clerk said, it's nominal. We're not selling it. It's, if you put it down as 2 million, it really means nothing, does it? Is that right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, some of these get changed for it. We do actually do a separate valuation on an insurance value, but this actually feeds into the audit process. And you're right. We're not looking to sell them.
Well, you were considering doing an insurance job where you cancel up torture reading our revenue.
It's one of those things. If you were going to sell it, you were making a proposal because you wanted to do something, then you would look at the value at that point. But other than that, it's sitting there providing a service. As soon as you start putting them up, if values come down, you've also then got a problem that you have to reduce the value that's in there. So traditionally, where I've worked in local authority, you don't necessarily put the value up if it was a project you were working on. If you were disposing X in order to achieve this, then that would start to be done. But it wouldn't necessarily mean the asset register got changed. That's right.
Every day is a learning experience.
Yeah.
Councillor Clark.
I just wanted to, I completely understand that where you're talking about buildings and the road, etc., etc. But in terms of vehicles and motorised equipment, which do depreciate, is there no rules about the devaluation and depreciation?
No, we don't.
On those?
Level council, at parish council level, you don't do depreciation. And under the accountability and audit regulations, you don't account for depreciation at parish level.
Even on motor vehicles which obviously need to be replaced within 5 or 10 years?
Correct. What you need to do is just build up the reserves in your earmark reserves, and either go trading or they become a write-off, which is what was happened on 2 vehicles here.
But there's also complication, isn't there, with electric vehicles, that actually some electric vehicles don't depreciate. So even that's a can of worms, I think. Okay, Councillor Wade.
Is the boardwalk hours?
Yes, I think it is, isn't it?
It is, because I'm looking for that on here, and first of all, I want to compliment Marcus and the team for the extra work they did fixing it recently and closed it off. But a resident reported to me it was some severe damage to it. They fixed it and they complimented today on that. But I just wonder where it is here.
Yeah, I think that's under negotiation for transfer.
Huh?
Isn't that under
Yes.
negotiation for transfer
It is.
currently? With
Oh,
district
that's why it's not on there. That's fine. That's why it's not on there.
It's a technical situation as to when the funds were or weren't transferred and as to whether it's technically our share
So
or
it's
not.
not actually on that yet.
Debatable, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Greg. Just a quick question. With regards to all the various bits of land, if there was ever a situation where someone came to us and said, I don't know, I'd like to purchase some land at Dibden Farm, for example, or Wickham Drive, would we get a valuation from it, or would it really be as effectively a nominal value?
So I don't understand the question. Is it
So
are we
also-
acquiring land or? is that-
Yeah, so you've got an asset register, and among our assets are various bits of small bits of green land around the parish. But obviously, if a resident wished to purchase it.
So you're talking about disposing
Yes.
an asset?
If you purchased an asset, you could actually put it in at purchase cost. That's generally what you would do. If, for example, if the parish council were to buy land.
But what if we were to sell land or sell an asset such as these?
You need Secretary of State permission to sell land.
No, okay.
I'm sure we've had this conversation before.
No, I was just curious because obviously I was just curious about some of the benefits of these bits of land. But that's
like to pound.
Yeah, I mean, it's nominal value of the pound. It's an arbitrary thing, really, because we're not allowed to revalue it. Because then you actually don't want to revalue your assets, because these have to go into the audit process on the ABAR form, which is your annual form, and you have to justify why you've revalued every single item.
That makes sense.
Okay, I think could I suggest if councillors need clarification on any points there, that they discuss that with the clerk directly. Are we happy to move on and approve that item?
Yes, Chair.
Right, can I have please a show of hands, or can I have a proposer? Thank you, Vicky. And can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mark. Okay, so councillors in favour, please raise their hands. Thank you. Councillors against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. Right, so we now go to Rock the Train community event, and this is just to receive an update from members involved in this event. Unfortunately, Councillor McLean is not with us this evening. She's isolating. Joe, would you like to just give an update from your perspective?
So from ours, I'm meeting with a couple of pubs tomorrow, going to have a chat with them, and then hopefully a lot of us traders are all meeting next week with Anthony to discuss everything and go over everything from there. And obviously then we've got our meeting on Wednesday.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Please do.
Just obviously there is some more grant available, as you know. Obviously I haven't been approached. I'd like to assist. Is there an opportunity to do so? Monetary?
Monetary, possibly with the train. Yes,
Okay.
I will ask.
I know it's allocated towards
Yeah,
the
because
event.
there is funding as well. So the Scratch Project are going to sponsor the event, and a few other people have asked if they could sponsor maybe smaller things around the village that are going on. So we're trying to get businesses to see whether they want
Keep
to
it in
sponsor
mind.
things. Yes, we will. Thank you.
There are details still to be worked out, for example, in terms of producing flyers for the various events that are happening, and I'm sure there will be an opportunity to contribute to those sorts of costs. But at the moment, some of the details are just not pinned down at this point. Certainly in terms of cost. And for example, we have bunting for Hythe Centre, but I'm still not aware of how much bunting is required at Dibden Parish, for example. for there. So that again is something that councils want. My understanding was that that was an item at amenities to talk about how there might be a broader councillor pot for supporting the Platinum Jubilee, for example, as well as the other local community events. Because the idea is not that it's spent in one go necessarily, but it's spent over the year, so there will be all sorts of opportunities to do that. And I felt with the councillors that it was a better idea to combine and do at least some things that would have some community impact, rather than individual councillors simply giving small sums of money here, there and everywhere. But I think it's not, well, I don't think we're in a position at the moment to be able to say categorically this is what's needed at this stage, because there are still some details to be ironed out. So I think this will have to be an item we return to in future council meetings, because certainly I'm afraid one of the issues has been COVID, which has delayed some of the more recent meetings. Okay, are there any more questions on that before we move on? Okay, then I think we'll move on from there. So, item 14, which is the Clayfield Sports Centre.
Those are the recommendations from...
Oh yes. So, the recommendations are that the council agrees to donate the temporary building currently located at the workshop to Hythe and Dibden Football Club. Those councillors who visited the workshop a while ago were aware that the temporary building was due for demolition, but this seems to be a much better use of that facility. Item 2, that the council agrees to the siting of temporary building in Clayfield Sports Centre, subject to the council being supplied with a copy of any relevant planning consent received by the football club prior to the installation of the building. And 3, that the football club maintains the exterior of the building in such a way that it's sympathetic to the surroundings. Do we have any questions on any of those items, Councillor Wade?
Yeah, is this the old building that used to be changing room for the Navy fields?
Yes.
Because the reason I asked that is obviously we replaced it with something that was better. Is that in a fit state? Does it need some lot of work internally then, that's all? I'm happy to support the football club with what you do.
I asked that question of Sean Spencer when we were there, and I think it is hoped that the building will cope with the move, but that is the football club are happy to take that risk.
Right, so I understand the sense how delicate it might be put on a truck, but are the in such area bits, basins?
It needs work.
Well,
it needs
that's what I'm getting at, yeah. I bet if our football club going to do that, or we do that?
No, they're undertaking that.
Yeah,
I would hope they do that before someone who's in it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that one, Councillor Wade?
When I stop the changing rooms. Yeah, so my points are that, and I think the clerk has pretty much made these recommendations. Make sure that it's temporary if we approve. Obviously, I think make it clear that we would like the building to be temporary, not become a permanent structure on the site. It doesn't appear to be a site that causes much convenience to the wider community, but obviously we want to ensure that it's a temporary is in the name. And obviously, if it comes to planning, it won't, because obviously we have a relationship with Clayfield, so we couldn't comment on the planning perspective anyway, could we?
I agree. I made that comment earlier.
And then that's my point. I completely agree. As chair of planning, I'd be very comfortable in the same way if any of us put a planning application in. So yeah, because we couldn't really comment on planning, we would have to sort of hold our hands up because of our relationship with Clayfield, wouldn't we?
But it is up to the planning authority what have they stipulate to the planning.
Yeah. But yeah, as I say, in principle, I'm happy to support this.
Are there any other questions? Any other comments on this? Thank you. Right, so I'll take I can either take each recommendation in turn, or we can vote on the 3 recommendations in one go. I'm happy to take comments from councillors either way on that one.
On block?
Yeah. So Councillor Cullen suggested we do it on block, and I've got a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Fairhead. So, councillors in favour of the 3 recommendations, please raise your hands. Thank you.
Just a technical question, because on my...
We've had questions now, we're moving
No,
to...
but I haven't got the recommendation.
Well, I've just read them.
Separately now.
It was emailed out, it was on the amenities agenda, and then it was emailed out, and because amenities hadn't happened when we published this agenda, we couldn't give the details.
Okay, no, that's fine, I just discussed it.
I can read them again if you...
No, I'm happy about it, so...
Right,
So make sure I know what I'm doing.
Check what he's doing.
Right, so councillors voted in favour, councillors against, and abstentions. Thank you, that's 1 abstention. Thank you very much. I'm not sure I voted on that one, so perhaps that's 2 abstentions. I've got to vote myself. Oh well. Moving on, item 15, which is finance. We have 3 to approve and 1 to vote on. Sorry, 3 to note and 1 to vote on. So I'm happy to take A, B and C questions as long as you say which point you're asking a question on, and then we will move to D separately from the vote. So do I have any questions at all on A, B or C? No, are councillors happy to note A, B and C?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. So moving on to item 15, which is to approve the accounts for payment for February 2022. Can I have a councillor who doesn't sign the accounts approving or nominating, that's the one. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Lovell. Okay, those people in favour of approving the accounts for February 2022. Thank you. Councillors against and abstentions. Thank you very much. Now we need to vote on exclusion of press and public for item 16. Proposed. Have I got a seconder? Thank you.
Just going to send this one.